Greetings, mortals. There are places where stone remembers, where rituals echo, where doors were opened and never fully closed. Tonight, we enter fortresses and castles abandoned by reason.
There is a sign, not hand-painted, not rumor scrawled on a cave wall, a formal cast-iron plaque posted by the Archaeological Survey of India, bolted into the earth like a talisman. It reads, "Entry is prohibited between sunset and sunrise, not for your safety from wildlife, not because of structural instability, but because after dark, this place changes." Welcome to Bangarh Fort, where history ends and something else begins. Set in the scorched landscape of Rajasthan, near the Sariska Tiger Reserve, Bangarh appears from a distance like a crown atop a low mountain ridge. Majestic, empty, still. Built in 1573 by Madho Singh, son of Raja Bhagwant Das, its origins trace back to the golden age of the Mughal Empire. Designed as a defensive bastion and pleasure retreat, it once housed temples, bazaars, havelis, and a sprawling palace complex. And yet, despite its architectural brilliance, despite its once strategic location, the city died, not from war, not from famine, but something unseen, something whispered about in villages for over 400 years. In the oldest version of the legend, passed mouth to mouth like an incantation, Bangarh's fall began with one man, Tantric Baba Singhiya. He was not a madman, he was not a fool, he was a scholar of forbidden texts, a practitioner of ancient tantric rites that dealt not in devotion, but in domination, of the self, of others, of spirits. Singhiya saw the city being built and knew this was the site. This place pulsed with energy. The hills formed a natural amphitheater of power. And at the center of it all, Princess Ratnavati, a woman of legendary beauty and rumored to possess her own spiritual gifts. In some versions, she was an adept of yogic arts. In others, the reincarnation of a warrior goddess. Singhiya became enamored, not with lust, but with ambition. He believed her energy could bind him to eternal power. So he enchanted oil meant for her skin with a spell that would force her to love him or enslave her spirit. She discovered the treachery and threw the bottle against the ground. It shattered near a boulder, which rolled, crushing Singhiya. As he lay dying, he screamed a curse, not just at the princess, but at the land itself. He swore the city would never thrive, that its structures would fall from within, that all who stayed would forget their lives and walk the earth as shadows. The following year, Ratnavati died in battle. Within decades, the city collapsed. The curse had begun. Today, Bangarh's architecture remains strangely intact and profoundly ruined. Its walls hold, but every roof collapses. Every attempt to build anew is followed by unnatural disaster. Not erosion, not time, something else. The ASI's warning sign isn't for aesthetics. It's one of the only officially recognized haunted sites in India. Government employees refuse to patrol it after dark. Locals flee the area well before twilight. No restoration has ever succeeded. No night tours are offered. The silence is enforced by policy and by unwritten law. Paranormal teams, both Indian and foreign, have made Bangarh a proving ground. Some bring advanced gear, others rituals. Most return changed. A Delhi-based team captured infrared footage of a humanoid figure crouching atop the Ganesh temple, which vanished mid-frame. Another group recorded a woman singing, a melody that no one present heard live. When played back, the tone produced visible shivers in each listener. One investigator, Rohan Malhotra, described a static shock that rendered him unconscious for nearly 20 minutes. Upon waking, he He had a burn mark in the shape of a spiral on his forearm, later verified by a physician. Visitors often report the smell of jasmine even in winter months, stone grinding noises deep underground where no floors remain, children's laughter, the most unsettling detail, as Bangarh's original population was almost exclusively adult, and always, just before the senses shift, a feeling of being watched by something ancient, something cold, something non-human. Hidden beneath the palace, spiritual researchers believe, lies a network of chambers used for tantric ceremonies. One room, half-sealed and inaccessible to tourists, contains a circle of blackened stone stubs, their tops worn smooth. Carbon dating is difficult, but the formation predates the fort itself. Some occultists suggest these were binding stones, used in energy channeling rituals meant to harness the Earth's ley lines. Bangarh is said to sit on the tri-junction of 3 energy lines, creating a vortex. Vedic scholars liken it to Kshetra, a place where gods and asuras once met. Others say the ground holds a scar from a ritual gone wrong, a spiritual detonation that made the land reject permanence. One yogi, who entered the site during an eclipse in 2014, claimed to have seen another city beneath Bangarh, a ghost city overlaying the physical one. He described temples not in ruins, but intact, people not dead, but frozen. When he tried to draw the layout from memory, his hand shook uncontrollably. He died a year later. Heart failure, no known condition. A consistent phenomenon among those who enter Bangarh's inner sanctum is lost time. People report entering a structure and exiting hours later, having experienced only minutes. Some are found walking in circles, repeating phrases, or trying to speak in Sanskrit despite never studying it. One tourist recounted walking into the Shiva temple during sunset. He blinked, and it was morning. His friends had searched for him all night. He was calm, dry-eyed. He claimed to have spoken to a being of light who told him to leave and never return. The man later became a monk. Why then has no military or academic body explored Bangarh fully? Privately, officers and historians whisper of malfunctions, drones refusing to fly, GPS devices losing signal, cameras that return only static or worse, footage they didn't record. One private contractor attempted a full 3D scan of the palace basement. The files corrupted within 24 hours. The server room caught fire. All backups failed. When asked for a comment, the project lead simply said, "Some sites are meant to remain questions." Despite the warnings, Bangarh attracts thousands. Some come for thrill, others for initiation. A quiet subset of seekers believe the fort isn't cursed, but protected, that it is a gate. Some believe Bangarh guards one of the lost cities, spiritual powers attainable only through enormous sacrifice, powers like astral projection, memory transference, or even bilocation. There are stories of modern-day tantrics returning here on solstices, of rituals held in complete silence, of symbols painted in ash that glow faintly in the dark. Bangarh Fort is not merely haunted, it is alive with memory, not just of one tragic love or one dark ritual, but of every spiritual fracture ever performed there. It has become a container for residual emotion, for psychic static, for looping time. Perhaps that's why visitors report dreams for weeks after their visit. Dreams not of horror, but of confusion. They see rooms that no longer exist, speak languages they don't understand, wake up with sand in their bed sheets, and always, just before they rise, they hear a whisper, a name they've never heard before, their own. Deep in the dark forests of the Czech Republic stands a castle that defies logic, purpose and even time itself. Its windows are fake, its fortifications face inward, and at its core, beneath a stone chapel, lies a hole so deep no one has found the bottom. Locals call it Houska Castle, but older names whisper of something darker. They called it the Gateway to Hell. Constructed in the 13th century during a time of territorial expansion by King Ottokar II, Houska's location makes no military sense. It guards no trade route. It oversees no border. It is isolated, perched atop jagged cliffs, surrounded by woods too thick for conquest. And yet, the first thing built was the chapel, not atop the castle, but over the pit. According to folklore, the pit had existed for centuries, a chasm in the earth, wide and dark, that terrified the local peasants. They refused to farm nearby. Animals avoided it. Birds, when flying over it, were said to fall dead from the sky. Rumors spread of winged creatures crawling from the depths, of strange lights at night, and voices that echoed from below with no speaker in sight. The villagers begged their rulers to seal it. They agreed, but first, they tested it. In the castle's early years, a most chilling experiment was conducted. Convicted criminals were offered freedom. In exchange for one task, they were to be lowered into the pit and describe what they saw. The first volunteer lasted less than 30 seconds. Screaming erupted from the hole. The rope was pulled up in a panic, and what emerged was no longer the man they had lowered. His hair had gone white. His eyes were wide with horror. He mumbled of beast men, grotesque figures, whispers that knew his name, and things that wanted to climb up. He died 2 days later, silent to the end. After him, no more were offered. The hole was declared unholy, and so they built the castle, around it, over it, to trap whatever lived below. Everything about Houska is wrong. Its architecture is defensive, but the defenses face inward, toward the courtyard. There are no external kitchens, no water sources, no signs of sustainable life. It appears not to be a home, but a seal. The chapel above the pit was constructed with limestone and holy relics embedded into the foundation. The frescoes inside depict non-canonical imagery, angels battling demonic hybrids, creatures with weapons and wings, and a figure believed to represent a guardian archangel with no name. Some architectural historians believe Houska is not just Christian, but pagan-Christian hybrid, that it was designed by mystics who believed the only way to guard the underworld was to sanctify its mouth. That belief appears to have endured. Centuries passed. The pit was sealed. But during World War II, Houska became occupied by Nazi forces, specifically rumored members of the Thule Society, a secretive esoteric group within the SS. These were not just soldiers, they were seekers, obsessed with lost knowledge, supernatural weaponry, and ancient energy sources. It's believed that the Nazis conducted rituals at Houska in attempts to contact or control whatever entity or force lies beneath. Survivors from nearby towns remember strange lights at night, symbols burned into the trees, and men in black coats who spoke Latin in the woods. When the war ended, the Nazis abandoned the castle in haste. They destroyed all records, but beneath the chapel, investigators later found remnants of animal sacrifice, scorch marks on the walls, a small iron-bound book written in an unknown cipher. Some believe they succeeded in opening something. Others say they failed and fled. In 2007, a Czech-Polish archaeological team attempted a digital survey beneath the castle using seismic imaging and non-invasive drills. The project was titled Veil of the Lower Chambers. Initial results showed anomalous cavities with no correlation to natural formations, some described as oval voids inside squared geometry. multiple technical malfunctions occurred. Equipment overheated, laptops wiped themselves. The lead technician claimed to see a human silhouette moving beneath their feet, visible on heat sensors, though no one was physically present below. After 3 days, the project was halted. Their final statement read, "The castle's foundations are not geological, they are ritual." All data was transferred to an encrypted archive and remains sealed under private ownership. Over the decades, reports from Houska have grown more specific. Caretakers and tourists describe sightings of black silent-robed monks walking through walls, winged humanoids, seen only for seconds, vanishing into trees, a headless horse that rides the castle's edge at dusk, followed by screams that echo for miles. One psychic, brought in for an investigation, refused to enter the main chamber. She claimed to see an eye below the floor, always watching. Her voice changed during the session, deepening, and she spoke in a language later identified as Old Church Slavonic. She left without taking payment. Her final words were, "The seal is cracking." Modern paranormal teams using ground-penetrating radar have discovered voids beneath the castle, not just one pit, but a network of hollow chambers. Their layout doesn't match the natural rock formations. Some are perfect circles. Others shift position depending on the time of day, suggesting non-Euclidean structure, a space that doesn't follow natural law. Audio equipment left overnight has captured repeating chants, the sound of bones clacking, a voice, low and male, counting backwards in German. No one was inside at the time. The psychogeography of evil. Spiritual geographers claim that Houska lies at a convergence point of dark energy, a site where the Earth's magnetic field is weaker, allowing spiritual bleed-through from other dimensions. In 1997, a Catholic priest conducted a private mass there. His account, published anonymously, described an overwhelming sense of being observed by something that envied God. He claimed that the pit was not just a gateway, but a throat, and that something ancient was still trying to speak through it. Since then, several exorcists have refused to enter the castle. One, when pressed, said, "You cannot exorcise a hole." What's perhaps most disturbing is that Houska remains structurally sound. While other castles crumble, Houska endures, as if the land refuses to let it fall. As if the structure, horrific as it may be, is necessary. Some say the builders succeeded in their goal, that the chapel, the walls, the seal, it's all working, that nothing has escaped, yet. Others believe it's only a matter of time. The masonry grows colder each year. Visitors feel pressure in their chests, a sound they describe as air screaming through stone. Some leave with nosebleeds, others nightmares. One man carved a spiral into his own palm on the flight home. He said he dreamed of falling endlessly, into fire, into ice, into eyes. Houska has no signs of normal habitation, no great feasts, no family portraits, no lore of heroes. It was not made for man, it was made for containment. For centuries, it has stood like a cork in the earth's skin. But corks rot, and seals break, and deep beneath the chapel floor, past the stones and scripture and centuries of silence, something waits. In 1944, a German soldier named Erich T., a radio operator, kept a hidden diary while stationed at Houska. It was discovered in 1993 inside a wall cavity during restoration work. His entries begin as mundane, but grow increasingly disturbed. Day 17. There is a door under the chapel, always locked. No one speaks of it. But sometimes I hear scratching, like stone on stone. Day 28. Last night the dogs wouldn't stop howling. At 3:17 all the clocks stopped. There was a scream, human, but deep, wet, like it came from the throat of a cave. Day 39, I saw it, in the mirror. It stood behind me, pale. Not a man, no mouth, just eyes like holes. They told me to open the door. His final entry reads, Day 42. I've removed the bolt. I'm not afraid. I was wrong. I was wrong. There is no continuation. The page ends in a jagged ink trail. The bolt he mentioned was found removed. The door, permanently sealed with lead. Some occult historians believe Houska is not just over a gateway, but is a constructed sigil, a three-dimensional spiritual circuit designed to bind a specific entity. This would explain the recurring spiral motifs etched into the stone, seen again in modern visitors' subconscious sketches and carvings. One theory names the entity as Velgar, an ancient bohemian demon of hunger and memory. It was said to feed not on flesh, but on the forgetting of truth, consuming knowledge, blurring pasts, and unmaking the self. If Velgar is bound beneath Houska, then the nightmares, the distortions, the anomalies, are side effects of proximity to something that erases meaning itself. Why does Houska still exist? Why is it not turned into a museum, a spiritual site, or demolished entirely? Some say it's because the Czech government knows, but will never admit it. That demolition has been attempted before, only for contractors to fall ill, machines to fail, and blueprints to burn. Others believe that those who try to reveal the truth become part of the castle, absorbed, memory erased, soul looped into the endless cycle of watching and waiting. And so the castle sits, untouched, a perfect scar on the earth. No celebration, no festival, no history that makes sense, only the wind that howls through sealed windows, and a pit that might still be open. One of the strangest aspects of Moosham's haunted legacy lies in the surrounding families, many of whom can trace their bloodlines back to the time of the trials. Some carry the same surnames as those who judged, others as those who were judged. A 2015 anthropological study interviewed 22 residents of Unternberg and nearby towns. 14 reported recurring nightmares involving fire and stone walls. 6 admitted to episodes of spontaneous sleepwalking, always toward the castle. One woman, age 74, confessed she had never visited Moosham, yet could sketch the torture room from memory. These dreams aren't always nightmares. Sometimes they're visions of rooms untouched by time, voices long dead, of rituals still in progress. It's as though the castle does not only haunt the living, but reaches backward, binding the descendants of its victims and tormentors alike. Within spiritualist circles, a term has emerged, the Moosham spiral. It refers to a cycle observed among paranormal investigators, historians, and even tourists who become obsessed after visiting. They experience weeks of vivid dreams centered on fire, trial, and judgment. Compulsions to research the castle, often to unhealthy extremes. Auditory hallucinations, mostly of women speaking in dead dialects. A growing belief that they themselves were present at the trials. Some suffer full mental breaks. One man, a former anthropology professor, vanished for months. When found, he had relocated to Austria and had taken a vow of silence. He lives less than 2 kilometers from the castle now, staring at it daily from his cottage window. When asked why he moved, he simply wrote, "They need a witness." Paranormal investigators who use modern equipment report disturbing anomalies at Moosham. Among them, temperature drops of 20 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds in the council room. thermal cameras capturing human-shaped heat signatures in empty rooms, magnetic interference disabling compasses and watches, and a repeating EVP captured multiple times of a whisper in Austrian German saying, "Judged, judged, judged." A French medium once attempted a spiritual cleansing. She collapsed mid-ceremony, later claiming that something had spoken through her, not a ghost, but a force of law, rigid and unrelenting. She described it as a judge without soul, burning with justice no man understands. A deeply unsettling hypothesis has taken root among certain scholars of the occult, that the witch trials were never about witches, but were ritual sacrifices, cloaked in legality. That every scream, every burning, was part of a structured invocation, designed to pierce the veil. The number of executions, 108, is spiritually significant in Eastern pagan and Gnostic traditions. The layout of the castle, courtroom, and vault aligns, according to one architectural occultist, with a perfect binding grid resembling seals used in ancient summoning rites. If this theory is true, Moosham was never just a courthouse. It was, and is, an altar. In 2009, a documentary team attempted to film a candlelit recreation of a trial scene in the main hall. The candles would not stay lit. New wicks, new wax, still nothing. The air was calm, no wind, no movement, and yet the flame refused to burn until one guest whispered a prayer, not of protection, but of judgment. The candle ignited instantly. When asked what she had said, the woman, a historian from Prague, answered, "I asked if my blood was acceptable." Perched atop a jagged mountain in the French Pyrenees, above swirling mists and winds that scream through stone, sits the fortress of Montségur, a name that still haunts history, religion, and the occult. To tourists, it's a ruin. To historians, a massacre. But to those who still whisper in hidden circles, Montségur was the last stand of the Cathars, a heretical sect that claimed to hold truths the church would burn to erase. And burn they did. The Cathars, also known as Albigensians, were spiritual rebels who believed the physical world was a trap, created not by God, but by a false, evil force. In their cosmology, the soul was divine, imprisoned in the flesh. Salvation came through knowledge, purity, and rejection of materialism. They had no churches, no altars. They recognized no priesthood but the initiated. They believed Christ was not born of flesh, and that the cross was not holy, but a symbol of torture. They were branded heretics, dangerous ones. And in 1243, their last refuge became a target. The fortress of Montségur wasn't just a hideout, it was a sacred library, a stronghold of relics and rituals, guarded by the perfecti, the Cathar elite. When the Catholic Church sent its armies, the siege lasted nearly a year. Brutal, starving, frozen on the mountaintop. But still, the Cathars refused to surrender. When they were finally betrayed from within, over 200 men, women, and children were dragged down the mountain and offered one chance: convert or burn. None converted. A massive pyre was built. No ropes were used. The Cathars walked into the flames singing. Eyewitnesses described the fire as white-hot, unnatural, and eerily silent. Some claim the smoke moved against the wind, spiraling upward like a soul torn from earth. The real question isn't how they died. It's what they died protecting. For centuries, legends have whispered that Montségur housed a sacred object, possibly the Holy Grail, or an even older relic tied to pre-Christian Gnosticism. Some believe it was a book, one that told of the soul's origin, the illusion of the material world, and the names of the false gods. Others say it was a portal, hidden in the mountain itself, a site of power that allowed communication with higher beings, that the Cathars weren't heretics, but guardians of ancient knowledge. The church, fearing this truth, chose fire. But some say the treasure was smuggled out. Days before the fall, 4 Cathars slipped through enemy lines and vanished. They were never found. Modern visitors to Montségur report strange phenomena, particularly near the cliff's edge where the pyre once burned. Chanting, heard at sunset in no known language. Sudden emotional waves, grief, peace, joy, that vanish instantly. Cold spots in midsummer. Dreams, recurring for weeks after the visit, of flame, flight, and a vast hall of light. One researcher from Toulouse fell into a trance-like state at the top tower. She later described a vision of an inverted star made of light descending into stone. In a rare surviving text, the Book of the Two Principles, Cathar writers hinted at a future time when their truth would return. The laurel will bloom again when the stars are right. This phrase has echoed across centuries, often dismissed as poetic nonsense, but the laurel was their symbol of rebirth. Some believe it suggests a cyclical return, not of the faith, but of whatever power they served. In 1944, an SS division loyal to the Ahnenerbe, Nazi occult division, reportedly climbed Montségur. They performed a ritual and left behind a swastika engraved into stone, but altered, twisted into a spiral. It remains visible today. What were they seeking? Locals speak of les veilleurs, the watchers, not ghosts, but presences that stand near the ruins at night, tall, cloaked, unmoving. Some say they are reincarnated Cathars, others say they are guardians of the veil, beings tasked with protecting the mountain's secret. One hiker, lost during a fog, reported finding a man dressed in white robes who guided him silently back to the path. When he turned to thank him, the man had vanished. He only found a laurel branch, still green, lying where the figure had stood. Geological surveys conducted in 2006 found that beneath Montségur lie hollow sections, not caves, but symmetrical chambers. One is hexagonal, one circular. No natural explanation exists. Seismic mapping failed multiple times, as if something interfered with the readings. Compasses spin near the southern wall. Drones crash. Batteries drain instantly. One drone that did manage to fly captured a flash of light, not lens flare, but a symmetrical golden shape that expanded and then disappeared. The footage is publicly available. No explanation has ever satisfied the viewers. There's a feeling at Montségur that's difficult to explain, a stillness that isn't peace, but potential, as if the mountain is waiting for something. Some say the Cathars left behind more than bones. They left behind a ritual half-finished, one meant to return when the world was once again hungry for truth beyond dogma. The question is, what happens when that truth returns? And who decides whether it saves or burns? Montségur is more than stone and ruin. It's a story never fully told, a faith too strange to die, a fire that still flickers in the minds of those who visit. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's a door, one that wasn't destroyed, only closed. For now. There is a question that lingers beneath every ruin, every echo, every locked door we've opened tonight. What happens to a place that becomes a vessel for belief, for blood, for rituals that were never meant to be remembered? These castles, Bangarh, Houska, Moosham, Montségur, were not chosen randomly by fear. They are aligned, in story, in structure, in function. Each site bears the marks of dark ritual, sacrifice, summoning, sealing. suppressed belief systems deemed too dangerous by state or church. Witnesses lost to time, and yet, still speaking. They are not ruins, they are containers. In the modern imagination, castles are symbols of nobility, defense, conquest. But in older traditions, they served another purpose. They marked intersections between worlds. Spiritual architecture always mirrors belief. These sites weren't just built on ley lines, they interrupted them, redirected energy, imprisoned it, or siphoned it. Think of Bangarh's collapsed roofs, Houska's inverted fortifications, Moosham's courtroom altar, Montségur's mountaintop seal, all designed not for comfort or beauty, but for containment. Some say these were gates that should never have opened. Others believe they were doors meant to be opened, at the right time. Across continents and cultures, these locations echo each other, spirals in blood, in stone, in time. Chambers beneath the chambers, where rituals echo and language unravels. Beings that are not ghosts, watchers, judges, interfaces. Each place leaves its visitors changed, not always haunted, but imprinted. They take something with them, or leave something behind. And above all, these sites whisper the same unifying question. What if belief isn't what creates power? What if belief only reveals it? Some believe the energy in these places is residual, trapped, like smoke in old curtains. Others argue something more unsettling, that the rituals never ended, that these places still function as gates, that the chants, the sacrifices, the strange geometry were not meant to be metaphors, but mechanisms, devices of invocation, tools of alignment, mouths still wet with meaning. And in that silence, we must ask, are we the ones watching, or the ones being watched?
Not all ruins are empty, and not all rituals end. Whether cursed by sorcery, sealed by fear, or built to defy heaven itself, some doors were never meant to open. Until next time, mortals, walk carefully where the stones still whisper.